Greetings, welcome to my presentation. Today my topic is Guqin, the traditional Chinese instrument. And I'm gonna divide this presentation into two parts. The first part is how the old generation keep the tradition, and the second part is how the new generation being innovative, exploring new ideas. And there's so many things I want to cover in this presentation, and so many good music I want to show. I'm so excited about this. But before I start, I want to take a moment to explain why I choose this topic. So I grew up in a music family. Both my parents was music teachers, and I grew up studying piano, Western music. And nowadays I'm noticing like kids are forgetting the Chinese traditional culture. Yeah, they're not like the in the old days, people studying guzheng, studying erhu. Nowadays people tend to play piano, violin, saxophone, drum, hip hop. It's cool. It's perfectly fine. I mean, the Western music is brilliant, but at the same time, I just think it's important that we know who we are, and it's important we know where we come from. Like, we cannot forget our own culture and history. I mean, myself is a perfect example. I sometimes question myself, like, why you paying so much tuition studying abroad, studying Chinese music from a non-Chinese teacher? And why do you know so little about your own culture and tradition? How much do you really like understand Chinese ancient arts and Chinese philosophy? How much do you really know? Uh, yeah, I want to question myself. So I think this is important, and for me personally, and also for the other young generation. And just couple of months ago, I've seen this new group. They are very young. They are in China, reviving this new traditional Chinese music scene. They're doing all this traditional Chinese instrument. They're doing a really good job, and this really ignites my passion. And this really brings out people's passion and hopes, and this is very exciting. So I want to do this topic, and now I'm gonna talk about some traditional Chinese arts. So in the ancient time, musician has very low status. You almost have the lowest status as a musician in ancient China. And there are some mandatory components for people to be a literati. I can't find a good English description of the meaning. I think the meaning is basically like a refined scholar, people with class, intellectuals, like the upper society. No, not necessarily upper society. You can be lower society, but you can also be a literati. Just people with knowledge. So those mandatory components is music, Chinese chess, which is called Weiqi. I think the English name is called the Go. And another thing is calligraphy. Calligraphy is huge, very important, and also traditional painting. So if you say you are like people with knowledge in the past, you probably need all these things. You probably should know all of these things really well. And I find some similarities between those traditional arts. You see, in the Chinese chess is black and white, and it really looks like the eight diagram. You see the eight diagram here, yin and yang, an old campus. This ancient invention, like the gunpowder and paper making. Those invention was invented like 2,000, 3,000 years ago. It's really like the old people, they really have their wisdom. And also the traditional Chinese painting, you can see mostly is black and white. You rarely can see some red colors, and mostly is describing nature. Some describing the people, but mostly is, and also calligraphy. You can see this is the horse, and these are the mandatory components. So if in the old society, some rich family, probably they want their daughter to learn all of these skills. And next, I'm gonna talk about the history about Guqin. So Guqin is invented from roughly 4,000 years ago, which is around 2000 BC, and that's a long time. Even though musicians would consider low social status, and there's nearly very a few music notation books left it. But somehow the tradition didn't die. It kept going throughout the history. And what's special about this instrument is it's like magic instrument. It's all in one. It can produce as much as over 100 different timbres and overtones, including imitation of heaven, earth, ocean, wind, sun, fire, moonlight, wave, birds, animals, human. So many things you can do with just single instrument, with just a few strings. Like in the beginning, it was only 5 string, I believe, and later is 6, and later is 7. And depends on how your left finger like lands on the string. If you just put the end of the finger tips like slightly mute, it create a kind of texture. And if you use your fingernails, it create a different texture. And if you scratch and the weight uh, varies, and all can create different timbres. It's so amazing. And often music was played as accompaniment for poetry and dance. So in the ancient Chinese society, poetry was a big thing. Music compared to that wasn't that big, so it's like a side dish. Poetry is the main dish. So there's so many fabulous, splendid poetry left it in history, but music, not so much. There's the music more described as a title of those poetry. So when I was small, I learned that if you see the ancient poetry and you see the title and it tells you what kind of mode, what kind of music is supposed to play while you read this poetry. So here's that. And one another thing I want to mention is in 1425, there's a very important uh, a person, the son of Ming Dynasty Emperor Zhu Quan, created the Guqin music collection, 神奇密谱. So in the ancient time, the Guqin music was kind of like here and there, and this all separated. But this guy, he actually created a collection. He collect all of these missing parts and into one book. This book, 神奇密谱, is actually translated as a spectacular, mysterious music notation of Guqin. And this guy really did something very important in the Guqin history. And another good example, similar example I can think of is the Mendelssohn. Mendelssohn actually created he collected the Bach's work from various area in Europe. So that's very important in the classical music history because before Bach dies, people nearly don't know who Bach is. They don't understand how great Bach is. And 50 years after Bach's death, Mendelssohn made the world know there's there's a person called Bach, and there's so many good music he created. So here's that. Next, I want to talk about the master of Guqin. So Guan Pinghu, born from 1897 and died in 1967. He's a traditional Chinese painting master, Guqin master. He is one of the literati, so-called literati. He knows all of the poetry and the intellectual thing. He's the intellectual that representing the Chinese culture back then. And there's one famous recording of him, Flowing Stream. I believe it was recorded around 1950s, so the sound quality wasn't that good. And what's special about this recording is it was selected in 1977 on the Voyager First Golden Records. So while Voyager First was a spaceship NASA sent to the space, and on that Voyager, there's a golden record and has 27 pieces of music that represent Earth. And this music, Flowing Stream, was one of the 27 as a represent music. So this is very, very special. And in this recording, Guan Pinghu was using the ancient Tang Dynasty Guqin, which was the instrument was probably made from 600 AD, which was a long time ago, 1400 years ago. So let's enjoy that. Oh, sorry. Although the sound quality wasn't that great, you can still hear the ancient instrument sounds. It's the ancient instrument is like the ancient sword. It's the sound is mysterious and clear, pure. It's very special. Here's one texture. He's using left hand as a mute. And let's go to 120. Oh, you see a further mute compared to the previous. You can really hear the nature. You can hear the greenery. You can hear the waterfall. And you can hear the stillness and wildness from the nature. This is really good. He really infused himself into the nature and presenting this through the music. And let's go to the exciting parts just for the time purpose. So here comes the exciting part. Let's hear this. Ah. You see? So he's playing between the natural F and A, back and forward. It's like two birds, like teasing each other. It's also like two streams of water, fighting over each other, but not in a vigorous way, but in a, playful way. Really beautiful. Oh wow, here it comes. Oh, the two flowing streams become one. Wow. You can really hear it. You can feel it. This is what master is. This is what master can do. Let's continue after listening the flowing stream. I want to talk about the Romance of Three Kingdoms. This is one of the four greatest Chinese ancient novel. It was written around 500 years ago, and the TV show was shot 30 years ago. So there's many version of TV show about this novel. It's a very famous novel. If you ask any Chinese, doesn't matter old or young, they should be tell you they should be able to tell you one or two story from it. It's that famous. It's like Hamlet from Shakespeare in Europe, maybe even more famous than that in China. So there's a thing called Empty City, uh, and the flowing stream was the background music in this scene. So the story is Zhuge representing one military head from a country, and the Sima on the right side representing another country's military head. One day Sima bring a lot of army surrounding the city, trying to conquer, and Zhuge didn't have his army around at the moment. So he made an urgent plan playing the guqin on top of the city and open the door widely and bring out some ships and is to confuse Sima, and Sima was hesitating in front of the city, and Sima's son, you see on the right side, questioning, father, this is no one in the city. We should be just like go inside the city and kill them all. And there's no one inside. But Sima hesitated. He said, I can hear, the tornado, tsunami, just from Zhuge's guqin playing, as if there's 100 millions soldier hiding in the city. I can also hear sometimes it's like a clear water and clear wind, and he's trying to confuse us with his guqin playing. And also, Zhuge never risked his life in his entire military career, so this must be a trap. So I cannot go inside. So I need to go back. So Zhuge actually succeeded to defeat so many troops just by playing the guqin, and the flowing stream was using as a background music because the parts, the natural F, natural A, coming back and forwards. It's like the combating in just like combating in the mind, like just by watching eye to eye combating, not even watching, just by playing the guqin, it's like already millions of soldiers combating. This is very fictional, but it's very famous and representing Chinese ancient literature and culture. So I just want to talk about this. And next I'm gonna move on to how the new generation uh, think about guqin and traditional Chinese music. So in the modern days, whenever we talk about guqin, this is a kind of imagery like we think about solitary, celestial being, some old grandpa hiding himself in the society, in the nature, just to get away from the noisy society, immerse himself like in the mountain, water, in some very mysterious landscape, this kind of thing. But the new generation, one gentleman didn't want this to continue, because after the Cultural Revolution, most of the old teacher who born in the late Qing dynasty, most of them died in the 60s, 70s. So that generation, the young student didn't have a good time to learn to carry on the traditional Chinese music because they probably have some other busy things to do during that time. So the culture was kind of like half like delayed or stopped, and so now it's getting harder and harder to carry on. But there's still people doing it, and this young gentleman created a group and doing this. I'm just gonna show you a great track, great recording they did. It's a Mombasa theme from Inception, from the movie Inception. And the music was the famous uh, Hans Zimmer. So let's hear this. Let's see how he using traditional Chinese instrument in modern time. You see he's using synthesizer, amplifier, along with his dual handpan. Let's just fast forward. Here comes the exciting part. Watch this. Yeah, getting creative with the ancient instrument. I've never seen someone using ball when playing guqin, so it's really some new ideas, new progress. He probably is one of the only, maybe one of the people who do this style. People was using amplifier before him, but never really using synthesizer. And he's really experimenting so much with guqin. He teamed up with some Middle East drum player and some Japanese flute, African musicians. You know, he's really doing some serious work. So let's go to the exciting part, which is around here. Oh, here comes the hand pencil. Wow, technique. You can hear the Western influence. You can also hear some Middle East music elements. There's so much. So many good components. I hear the bell. This is great. So for time purpose, I'm just gonna move on, and you can watch the video again. I already have links in the presentation. So this electronic guqin player is called Tang Bin, and handpan was Chen Xi. They're playing the Mombasa theme from the movie Inception. Music written by Hans Zimmer. Great work. Perfect marriage from Chinese ancient instrument with Western music. It's great. So he also created a club, a traditional Chinese instrument club with many young generation musicians recreating the Chinese music theme. You see there's a pipa player, guqin player, guzheng player, traditional Chinese drum player, flute player, many different. They also dress in the costume, makeup. You see the prop, you see the background. They look like they just come from the painting from 1,000 years ago. They look like exactly the same. Wow, they really doing some serious work, making new reformation while carrying on the tradition, reviving the scene. This is really exciting. So Tang Bin, classically well-trained guqin player, and he's famous for using the synthesizer on the guqin, blending guqin music with other cultures' music, and also perform film music. And here you can see some of the pictures. This is one of the picture he did. He experimented a lot, more than just this. And here's the player playing Chinese flute in the background of a painting. And here's a video I want to show, telling the music road of Tang Bin and how he created the Zide Club, the traditional Chinese instrument ensemble club. Let's begin. Here is him playing the traditional guqin technique. Very good. I'm gonna fast forward. So this is him introducing and showing the new office and their class, their classroom, and their equipment, camera, studio, and their recording for performance and for teaching purpose. And they also have live performance. I'm just gonna fast forward.
其实10多年前就有人这么玩了，但大部分人都把它当成一个放大的声音的古琴去弹。像我这样把它当成合成器来用，还专门为它作曲的，可能只有我一个。古琴需要一些新的生机，适应这个全新的时代。也许插电是一个不错的选择。
The ancient Chinese culture. Just gonna speed up.
已经传承了3000多年了，在我看来，它的心脏虽然还在跳动，但已经有衰竭的趋势。它需要这个时代为它来注入新的能量，焕发出这个时代的光彩。
欢迎来到幻视会。
So here's them playing this. I'm just gonna end the presentation in the performance. In this piece, you can really hear a lot of different music elements from outside of China. You hear Japanese flute, you can hear some Indian, maybe African drumming, some Caribbean, Latin American elements. You can hear a lot. They're really doing some creative music, This is what world music is about. And I want to thank you for listening to the end. Although this is my first time doing this video presentation, I hope this works. I tried so many software program, and finally this seems to work just fine. The video links I left in the PPT. You can watch later. They're really good. It's where I already watched them so many times. So thank you. This is the future. I wish they can do more this type of music. Great.